of fire and emergency responders worldwide, and our members are the leading experts in firefighting, EMS, terrorism, hazmat, natural disaster, search and rescue, wildland response, and all other aspects of public safety policy. We want to make sure that when we're looking at technologies, that we try and figure out, is this a good product for our folks? How is it going to help them? And then what policies need to be written around the use of that technology as well. Next. The IAFC Technology Council serves as a knowledge center for technological developments that affect a fire service. The council provides a forum for information and knowledge exchange among different stakeholders, including fire chiefs, public safety organizations, and the vendors. We have to work hand in hand with our vendor partners to make sure that when they're developing products, they were actually products that we can use and that help us. The vision is to advance the fire, rescue, and EMS services and allied agencies to be the leading edge of technological adaptation. Chief Muncie, have you joined us yet? I don't see you, so we're going to go ahead. Okay, so Damon, we're going to go ahead and kick it off with Company 6 for you and Jim, and thank you very much for being here, and we'll roll.
Jeff, thank you. We really appreciate it. We're excited to talk to this group of leaders and technology leaders. Thanks for the time and opportunity. A little bit about me and Company 6, and Damon will share information. We're going to split the presentation. But I'm Jim Booth. I'm the CEO of Company 6. Company 6 spun out of a company named Sphero in May. And our mission, Damon's putting it up here, is really to provide situational awareness tools for first responders and other professionals with dangerous and difficult jobs. And just to give you a little bit of background about us, we certainly know robotics. I said we spun out of Sphero in May. We funded the company, and we've sort of been off to the races with developing our product, ReadySight. But Sphero, you guys will know us from, we created the most popular toy in America for 2 years straight with the Star Wars BB-8 toy. And then we also were the most popular robot in education. What that meant is it allowed us to make over 5 million robots. So kids in schools are learning about STEAM, STEM, and technology through our robots. And we certainly have had a lot of experience bringing really usable robots to the market that are easy to use, low cost, and highly functional. The other piece of history is that we had first responders coming to us saying, hey, we think what you guys do in robotics is absolutely amazing. Have you ever considered doing a situational awareness tool for first responders? And it took us probably about 6-7 years before we felt comfortable with where the technology was and where it would be really useful for first responders. So in the next slide, Damon will show that a lot of people got introduced to robots, and certainly me. I was an Army officer, graduated from West Point, and used some of the first robots in combat. And what you found there is what you sort of find out also in first responders is that often the robots that are used there require specialized users. They're really expensive, and they have a ton of sensors on them, and they're good for certain applications, very specialized applications. And I share a story with users and also investors and others saying that I used one of the first robots. We had it in a cave. It didn't accomplish its mission for us, and then we all argued over who was going to go recover this really expensive robot because we had signed for it, and it was an expensive unit asset. What we decided, because we were in combat, was to demo it and call it a field loss, and it was unfortunate. But that is kind of the state of a lot of robots being put into the hands of a few. And what we're really trying to do is flip that paradigm over on its edge and put the robots in the hands of many. And our intention is to be able to deliver really functional sort of Swiss Army knife situational awareness robot in ReadySight that is very low cost and super usable. So You see it here. Ready Sight certainly, has just it is something that, in terms of delivering video to the average user, it really is a paradigm shift, for folks. We're going to put these out into the hands of frontline users at a cost and a level of technology that they certainly have not seen before, and make them really usable. So, with this, we're going to dive into some of the speeds and feeds on this, sort of take you into our lab and introduce you to the product. I'd like to say that this is designed by and for first responders. As somebody who was out on the front lines, I think it's really critical to get input, and that's what we're looking to do here with this team. And so we'll finish and leave time for us to be able to go through questions for you, and we have some questions of you guys as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Damon to dive into our specific product features and use cases. And Damon's our head of product.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So yeah, as Jim mentioned, our goal here was to make something that was really, took what people were using these tactical robots for, but just gave it to a lot more folks out in the field. And that accessibility kind of goes a few ways. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But what I wanted to do is just walk you through some of the features. You can see it's got all kinds of instruments and it's loaded up. The first thing, just so you all know, it's about the size of a 16-ounce can, so like an energy drink can, or it's also about 1 pound. So we wanted to really have that sweet spot and capability, but being small enough and portable enough to strap on a vest or a belt. So this is a basic how it works slide, and in general, the goal here was to just make this simple. So you toss it into a situation, you don't have to worry too much about it. It's shockproof, it's waterproof, water resistant, I should say. You're going to have the image come up on your cell phone, via the cell network. Of course, there's Wi-Fi direct connection. We'll talk a little bit about some of those capabilities. And then we also want to make it really simple to just keep going. And what I mean by that is the usability here was paramount. We know that folks are going to be tied up on a scene doing the work that that involves your full attention. So we didn't want you to spend a lot of time having to learn specialized controllers and operate this thing. And I'll talk a little bit more about the interface in a minute, but this just tap on the screen. You can tap on the video feed and the robot will go there automatically. So that's kind of how simple we want this to go. And then the feed that comes out of the robot will be streamed not only to your device, but also up to the cloud to share with team, distributed team around the world, even in real time. They can be on laptops, they can be on phones. So we'll dive in a little bit more to how the old, that all links together. But let me just give you an overview on the robot itself here. So I'm going to start with our camera because it's kind of our main feature here, and I'm going to work counterclockwise around. But we've got a 180-degree Sony HDR lens. So actually sensor, I should say. What we really tried to optimize is the best camera, right? This is the core of the product, and we've landed on Sony, which we all know has been doing incredible things with low light image detection. So this is a sensor that in almost no light, moonlight, will actually give you a pretty good image. Now on top of that, it's good HDR quality. So if you're looking from inside of a warehouse to a scene that's got a lot of backlighting because maybe a door's open or something, you're going to get pretty good dynamic range and be able to make out images, in both the highlights and the lowlights. So it was important to us that the camera was just really robust. Now that low light functionality is great, but obviously there's zero light situations that we encounter. So we've got this white light headlight for white light illumination. It's a single LED. It's incredibly bright. That will illuminate a scene. If you want to illuminate the scene without any white light, we have an infrared flood lamp as well. And just to give you an idea about the kind of engineering, thought process we had, the normal way that you would have this IR light and a camera is you'd have an actual mechanical shutter that slides over the camera. But we wanted to maximize durability, so we didn't like the moving part that went back and forth. So what we did is we built a specially tuned filter that goes over the camera that lets in this specific infrared flood lamp range, but not the other kind of infrared light that you would get a lot of interference from in like a daytime image. So just to give you some ideas, we went through and kind of reduced as many moving parts and tried to really innovate on this product. On the bottom of the product, you'll see a speaker, and we actually did kind of orient it intentionally like that, so you actually get a little bit of acoustic gain by bouncing off the ground. The robot can be operated in any orientation, but this is kind of its primary orientation is with the speaker oriented down. You'll see on the right-hand side, we have these time of flight sensors. What these are is infrared lasers, not unlike what makes up LiDAR ultimately, but single point infrared lasers. And the idea there was to do a few things. One is to kind of help in a situation where you might be in an unknown environment. We know that it can be disorienting. So we wanted to make sure that you could actually tell, with millimeter precision where you were, in regards to a wall or an obstacle, how big the room was. So you'll be able to measure objects and how far they are. It also helps in some of our semi-autonomous functionality. And what I mean by that is, our goal was to, like I said, make it easy to operate. And you don't need to have practiced 15 hours on a simulator. We want you to just be able to drop in and anybody to control this. So if there's like a doorway is a good example, or like a table leg that's in the way, the robot will have some capability to kind of navigate semi-autonomously. If you tap on the screen and you want to go somewhere and there's something in the way, it can circumvent, it can maybe make small adjustments to get through a doorway without getting stuck. So that was the goal. You'll see also the call out for integrated antennas. I'll show you more in a minute about this, but you'll notice there's no big antenna sticking out, and that's because we've kind of built them around the robot itself. We also have an indicator LED on the front to kind of show the status, and then we have this motion detector on the top. This is it's a PIR motion sensor, and so it's actually looking for just like in an office building or something. It's looking for any kind of a movement. It's actually looking more specifically for kind of human, for heat, for thermal movement, but we'll talk a little bit more about the image or the motion detecting capabilities. Just a quick look over the rest of the robot. So replaceable end shield, and this is kind of cool because we're actually using an optical grade silicone. So the idea is that it should be naturally kind of resistant to scratches because it's actually a soft material, but it is replaceable. So if you're if your lenses are getting beat up or you need to replace it because the optics aren't there, we can swap that out nice and easily. We've also built on a couple additional pieces, knowing that these will be used out in the field kind of on an improvised fashion. We've got a few mounting slots. The tail's able to kind of, grab onto things. You could strap it to a pole. Now the foldable tail, you can kind of see that the footprint of the product actually will collapse. So if you were to push this robot down to the bottom of the slide, that tail will actually fold out. And inside of that tail is a mechanism that allows it to latch on. So if you were to clip it onto a belt or clip it onto a vest or clip it onto a charger in a vehicle, you can just kind of push the robot on and it will click on. And you can push 2 buttons on the charger and it'll pop back out. So we wanted to kind of make it really, really easy to operate. It also has one big button. A lot of it can actually be controlled through the app. So it's one of these products that you have all the control through the app because it's kind of always connected through the cell network. But we do have one big button to be able to quickly get you to the right mode when you deploy it. Just on the backside, quickly, you can see on the top, we have the microphone that kind of fills out the 2-way audio that the speaker's part of. We have a top indicator LED as well. And we have a USB-C connection, which is great because it's hopefully more universal and hopefully folks have access to that more often in your day. It also provides a quick charge capability. So we're looking at about 2 hours of kind of driving heavy performance right now as our target. Standby mode can last for much longer, days on end if it's just waiting for a detection. But we do have a quick charge capability. So if you're out in the field and you deploy this and you need to top off the battery, you should be able to do so in a matter of minutes. Another point I just wanted to make is we have all the sensitive instrumentation, but we are looking, like I said before, towards durability. So we've made sure that everything is well protected. And you can see from the profile, the areas that make contact are meant for, these are meant to be abused and they're meant to be, thrown off a 2-story building or whatever it ends up being. We have a couple different modes here of operation. This was one of the innovations we wanted to bring because we know after talking to first responders, while the robot itself will be great to be able to drive it into a scene, there's sometimes the need to just keep an eye on a scene in like a sentry mode. And so if you put this up on its side like a can, you can actually use that driving motor. It can rotate right and left, and it can actually kind of sweep an environment all the way up to 360 degrees. You can also leave it in this kind of, either actually orientation, and just rely on that motion detector we mentioned earlier, or vibration or audio to wake the product up and start recording or transmitting. The construction, just to give you some insight into this, we've really paid a lot of attention to sealing. The drivetrain system, that's actually one of the more complicated places when you're trying to make it water resistant. We have a metal faceplate on the front, which actually protects that instrumentation, but also acts as a heat sink. So heat dissipation, as you can imagine, in a compact cellular device is a challenge. And then we've built the majority of the product out of polycarbonate, which we've made a lot of our products out of in the past, and we found it's incredibly durable. I kind of joke about this, but it's also not a joke. Kids are very hard on products, and we've tested our toys to pretty high durability specs, and so we're only making improvements on that, and we're paying just the maximum amount of attention to durability on this product. There's also going to be some customization, configuration. We opt towards this everyday model. It's got kind of this white and gray color scheme, partially for visibility, partially because we believe that these are community assets, and we want them to be kind of displayed and worn proudly. And we also understand that there's tactical situations and there's other kind of colorways that might be beneficial. There may be customization that your department wants to put on it, and so we're paying a lot of attention to that as well. Just to give you a look kind of in the lab, as Jim likes to say, this is a little bit of the prototype progress that we're making right now. So you can see, we have our beautiful renders back here, but you actually have a beautiful product taking shape slowly. And, this is our early prototype here that we're just getting up to speed. You can see how we've kind of made that instrument cluster, it's all self-contained within the aluminum. And then you can also see kind of how densely packed the electronics and circuitry are. You're also getting a glimpse here at the antennas and how they're wrapped around the outside of the robot, which is, again, very important for giving us cellular signal at a ground level, but also, just ensuring that it's operable no matter how it lands. We've worked really hard to get, custom PCB boards made. These are very, very high density, multi-layer circuit boards. And, we're doing some novel things with these flex circuit boards just to make sure we can fit everything in this package. So that just gives you some looks behind the scenes as we're getting this thing going. But of course, hardware is only part of a product. So the other half is software. And what we really wanted to do different here was to optimize, what you already have in your pocket oftentimes, which is a cell phone, a very powerful, a very bright screen, a very powerful computer, and very reliable antennas. So rather than carrying an external control unit with you all the time, we've kind of built this for the phone. You'll also be able to access it through a web interface. Say if somebody's in a command center, and we hope to expand kind of what the software looks like. But you can kind of imagine that these robots will just come online. You'll be able to join in and watch. Of course, you can set permissions on who can speak and who can drive. But in general, this is meant to be very, very intuitive. Like Jim said, you can just tap on the screen and it will actually go there. Of course, you can also drive it with a joystick if you prefer. This just gives you a quick insight into the kinds of things we're thinking for the interface. This is a concept, but you'll see you have kind of access to all your heads-up display items you may want to use. You also kind of have some visibility as to who's currently watching, who's operating. You have kind of your streaming information. You'll be able to flag clips. So we've talked a little bit about how the robot broadcasts over the cell network, but it also records in an encrypted state to the robot itself. So what you can do is you can flag areas of video, either real time or after the fact, where you'll be able to go back and retrieve the high resolution imagery there. Other things we're looking at is capturing a still image. We're kind of lowering the resolution to stream it through the cloud, but by maybe pressing and holding for a minute, you might be able to take an image that will be full resolution just in case you need to make something out. So we're trying our best to kind of make a lot of these almost consumer type, very intuitive interface decisions that we just hope will translate into this market and make it easier than ever to kind of get a robot like this deployed. Now, of course, with that being said, hardware and software aren't the whole story yet. And part of what we really wanted to go into this business doing was bringing a kind of a new business model that we hope will be, something that allows more people to get their hands on these products. So I'll let Jim kind of talk a little bit about this, but this is kind of an all-inclusive monthly pricing model.
Yes, I'll take you a little bit through our pricing model, but what this is intended, this slide, to show you is that not only do you get the hardware, but you get a lot more that comes with it. You get CGIS compliance, you get all the cloud storage, you get all of your LTE usage. So you get a lot, and you know, as Damon said, we wanted to make not only a transformational product, but also sort of a transformational business model. So when people looked at this, they said, "Wow, hey, this is certainly something that I can bring into my everyday environment. You know, it has a low barrier, you know, to being deployed because it's easy, and also from a cost perspective." So in terms of cost, our next slide kind of shows you how we're sort of thinking about this. So this is a monthly pricing model for folks. Certainly, if people want to pay annually and they say, "Hey, I have an annual budget, I want to pay you once and I want to be done with it," we're going to go ahead and accommodate that as well. But I'll start from left to right and build on it. But in the standby mode, if someone's like the Red Cross or an organization like that that is going to use these units during you know, highly intense moments and events, they can pay $9 a month, and then when they actually use it, it'll cost $10 a day or $9.99. And then there's an initiation fee that roughly kind of covers some of the costs of our hardware, of $3.99 in standby mode. In everyday mode, think of a professional. So I'm security, I'm you know, an industrial user, maybe a pipeline, you know, just anyone that we've had people that have said, "Hey, I'm you know, I do home inspections," and so we've gotten all kinds of professional users that have come out and said, "Hey, I'm very interested in this." That would be $99 a month, and you'd pay us $199 for initiation fee. And then on the responder side, and this is where we see, you know, certainly fire, police, you know, other federal agencies, even you know, the military have looked at this, basically saying that, hey, for $149 a month, what I get is I get you know, basically I get to use the you know, the first responder LTE network. I, you know, get unlimited use of it. I get a loss in the line of duty, so we'll provide one unit, and we'll go ahead and do that. You know, the ability to go ahead and tie in multiple users, CGIS compliant, and a lifetime sort of video storage. So, you know, we provide sort of that full, you know, responder package for folks. And, you know, as we've talked to people about this, and it's one of the reasons why we came into this market, is they said, like, hey, if you can provide this kind of value, it is transformational for us. We can replace robots that cost us thousands of dollars or hundreds, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars across our entire unit. So we lead with this as kind of a, you know, a feature of saying, like, hey, this is highly affordable. This is what gets it into the hands of many. And we've seen just a ton of interest. We recently came out of stealth mode right around the late November, early you know, December timeframe, and a ton of people have kind of come into our early access program saying, "Hey, I want to be among the first to be notified about this." And we'll talk a little bit more, you know, as we go through and show you some of the agencies that have signed up with us. So, in terms of use cases, Damon, you want to take use cases and roll through those a bit?
I will. I also just wanted to, I know we'll talk about questions here in a minute, but just for the water resistance, I believe we're working for IPX. I think it's one of the IPX, I think it's 5.6, but we'll be updating you guys, and I'll tell you kind of how to get on this list. We'll be updating you more as we do the testing. So whether it's submergible, we're going to try it, you know, and it's not rated for that, but we're going to try literally everything, and we'll let you know exactly what happens. It's 6.7, IPX 6.7. So anyway, I also wanted to just reference the pricing. It does include the hardware. So this is something that, you know, is a little bit of a unique pricing model, but the goal there, and Jim kind of touched on it, but I want to reiterate it, is to lower the per unit cost, so that if you were in a situation where you needed to use one of these, where it may not be retrievable or where it may be destroyed, one, to make sure the burden isn't very high. So, you know, as he mentioned, for the responder plan, there's once every 24 months that will be replaced. But you can buy a replacement robot for, it'll be in the hundreds of dollars instead of the thousands of dollars. So that's part of the goal there is the per unit cost actually just comes down in general. So use cases, I just wanted to show you this image. Now I know this is just a lot of words up on the screen, but what we did is we did surveys, we did interviews, and we got a lot of use cases back for folks. And you can see that it's, we had a lot of police heavy, early influencers here, but you can see that in general, it's just looking at areas, getting in spaces you can't normally get, making sure places are safe and secure. And that's, that's really cool to see. The use cases we had originally envisioned, and we knew that it would be, the real magic here wouldn't be the use cases that we're all thinking of, these, these really dire situations, but there's so many everyday situations where it just might make more sense to have a robot do something instead of a human. So, these were some of the places, unknown situations. If you're searching something, if it's hard to access and you can't physically get in there, and you can see in this image, we've got a concept art of a pole camera attachment, which is one of the accessories we're kind of considering. This unmanned observation we talked about, putting it on to look at a scene or to keep an eye on an area if nobody's around or if people are otherwise being utilized. Looking at accidents, overturned trucks, what's leaking? Do we need to check it out with the human? Can we figure anything out from the robot's perspective? Obviously, critical incidents, having multiple people get involved, having specialists be able to join remotely from anywhere on the world. They could be, they could be asleep in bed across the planet, and they can get on and see a scene and give their expertise. And of course, search and rescue, where we've actually learned a lot more talking to folks in the fire space. And I think there's a lot of really exciting uses there. These were some of the fire specific, uses that we had in mind, but this is a place where, we'll be really interested to hear about you guys, and what you think you might be able to use this for. So obviously hazmat, technical rescues where the confined spaces are difficult to get to, wilderness areas, things that are remote, being able to investigate these arson scenes or places that may be unsafe before a human enters. These mass casualty incidents where you can kind of survey a scene, search for patients, communicate with patients remotely, leave one behind. Even COVID situations, people have asked us, just the ability to kind of monitor two-way and be able to communicate and leave one of these and not worry about whether it's on a network or how far you end up driving. And, of course, vehicle crashes, extractions, things like that. So just to give you guys a quick, look into our early access program. This is kind of just some of the response we have. You'll see this is police heavy, but this is where you guys kind of come in. We really want to hear from the fire and rescue people, and we want to make sure that we're getting as many people signed up on our early access list. So let me just give you a look into kind of what the rollout's going to look like, and then I'll explain to you how you can get involved. So starting in the spring, since this is a telepresence robot by nature, our hope is to have a simulated environment where you'll be able to kind of pop in, take command of a robot yourself, and kind of drive it over the terrain and get information back and understand a scene real time. In the summer, we'll have test and evaluation units and demo units because, of course, you're going to want to get your hands on it and throw it at a wall or something. So we'll make sure that we have them ready for you around that time, either to send out or to come out and demo to a group. By late summer, we're hoping to have our beta program going where we'll kind of select a few folks to take part of that and just make sure we've got everything ready to go for our launch, which will take place in late fall. And if you want to get involved, the best thing to do is to go to our website at co6.com and just sign up for early access program. What our early access program is, it's kind of a no obligation for buying, but it gets you on the list so that if you want to buy a unit, you'll be on the list. It also gives you kind of the updates. We'll be doing some development updates. We'll be doing these test videos I was telling you about. We'll drive them over different terrains. We'll make sure you have really good visibility about what they're capable of and any additional features. And then, like I said, we'll make sure that we contact you the second that they're available or as we're trying to down select for our beta. So co6.com, that's the best place to get involved. And you can also email Jim or I directly. So I've got, Jim at co6.com if you have any questions, me at co6.com. So that's after we've concluded. But for now, I think we'd like to take time to do questions live.
So this is a spot where we'd love to get questions from you guys, and we obviously had some questions on our own, but we just want to stop and interact with the group because this is a great group of folks.
Yep. So if anybody has a question, I know we've got a lot of questions that Charles has asked in the chat box. If you want to go through and review those, but I've got one question. Have you looked at integrating with like Axon and body-worn cameras to coordinate the video feeds as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually have. We've looked at working with different evidence collection systems, whether it's Axons or others, and other camera feeds as well. So we built the system to be very, so we can integrate it in with, easy APIs and things like that. So we've tried to be as open as possible. On the back end, cloud infrastructure, we've done a lot of stuff that allows us to kind of pipe the video in different places. So actually have John, our CTO, on the line too, if there are any super technical questions on video or the hardware. So feel free to hit us with anything, guys.
Yeah, the other note on body cams real quick too is, we've already heard from a few search and rescue departments or departments that don't have body cams. This is a device that can potentially double as a body cam too, if you were to attach to a vest, something like that. Not a primary market, but we've heard it being useful.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've heard people saying that like they try to take their body cam off and use it to see around a corner, or I mean, obviously we're great in confined spaces and are mobile, and we can get to those places that a body cam can't.
So you were talking about the search and rescue. Have you been working with any of the federal USAR teams or any of the state teams? I know we've got some folks on our council that work with departments that have those teams. I'm sure some of our folks might want to offer up their team for you to come in and do demo training, R&D with them, because different teams around the country deal with different things. And so I know we've got Chief Droids from Seminole County on here, and the Florida experience is much different than the California experience. So.
Yeah, we have gotten requests from folks, but we certainly haven't dove deeply into that yet. So we'd love to be able to talk to some of your teams about requirements and learn more. So
we're in that phase right now in development where so many things are locked, but there's still a lot of final design decisions to make. So and what I mean by that is, like, as we talk to people in different areas, it's really, really valuable to us to just hear, how they like to use it, what concerns they have, and definitely I encourage anybody to reach out to me directly. Just let me know if you want to offer up R&D on your side. We're going to do our best to try everybody out from different geographies, because that the cold tolerance, the heat tolerance, these are things that we're trying to figure out. And I will mention, just since it's a fire related event, we have had a few folks ask if it can drive into a fire and if it can withstand that. That's not really. We're going to be testing that once again. We'll test everything. It's not meant for like direct heat, but we do have to accommodate the heat ranges from Arizona in the middle of summer, in Minneapolis in the trunk of a vehicle in the dead of winter. So, we're doing our best to build a broad set of tolerances, and in general for this product, our goal was to make it, it's the 85, 90% product. Doesn't open a door, it doesn't climb stairs, but if everybody can have it in their pocket and it gets you a little bit closer to, getting the critical information in a critical time, that's really our goal.
Let me ask a question of the group. If there's, one of the things that we love when we talk to the National Tactical Officers Association, got some great feedback, but probably the best question we asked of them is like, what did you like most and what did you dislike, right? And because we just want that feedback, and we try to say it's designed by and for, and that's us then having to go out to folks and say, okay, hey, you've seen, what we're capable of and what we're looking to do, but tell us what you liked most and what you like least, and that's just great feedback for us, and you won't hurt our feelings on what you like least. So it's just I started ending all of our presentations on that, just going, hey, what did you like most and least? And I've got some just incredible feedback. So let me stop and have you guys offer that up.
Hey, Jim, this is Charles. I was curious, do you have any videos that show the movement of this? Because that's helpful to understand the range of operation.
Yeah, we do. It's just, sometimes over Zoom, it's tough to, really block it. So we could share that with the group but moving videos on Zoom tend to be hard.
Yeah, Jim, if you send that to me when we put the recording up, we'll put links to your videos on your website and stuff, or if you've got them somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, you can go to co6.com and you'll see, some of the moving videos and stuff. But we'll share that with you for sure. That's a good question, though. Thanks, Charles.
I'll see if let's keep chatting. I'll look into that. You'll see a lot of it is renders, and the reason is we're right between our early prototypes and then our more conforming prototypes. So you just caught us kind of right in between filming some new content here. But we do have an early test video, and we can look into sharing that as well, in addition to what's on the website.
That's great. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to our second presentation. You can be thinking about additional questions that you might have. You can put those into the chat box, and our presenters can answer them. Or when we get to the end, we'll circle back around if there's any follow-up questions. So next, we're going to have Angus Custerson from Wireless Innovations. Angus, you there?
I certainly am. Thank you.
Great.
Let me just share my content here. Thanks. So I hope you can all see the slides there. I'll steal the thunder just of the last slide on the Technology Council. Introducing ourselves, we are HIFA, powered by Wireless Innovation. The people presenting today is myself, Angus Custerson. I lead global sales and business development for Wireless Innovation. And I've also got my colleague, Mick Hughes, who is our product director for Mesh products online as well. So you can get as technical as you like and ask us any questions, although during the presentation, please use the chat box and we'll get back to you. First things first, the HIFA itself is a global brand that we've created by this company, Wireless Innovation. We started in 2015 in Brisbane, Australia, and have focused on multi-bearer integrated communications for public safety and enterprise. What that means is that we provide a way to use any network available, whether it's cellular, whether it's radio, or whether it's satellite, in order to pass voice and data traffic from wherever you are. We've also been, I'm not sure where it is. We've also been in a position to work with a lot of the emergency services agencies around the world, and in particular in Australia, to look at the developments that may be required for future communications requirements. So our key phrase at the moment is that we're offering reliable connectivity by extending coverage beyond current networks. Now, the HIFA brand consists of 4 communications solutions. We've got a satellite push-to-talk. We have a fusion network, which essentially turns a vehicle into a multi-bearer communications hub. We have what we call HIFA Connect, which is the integration back into communications cores, in particular P25 and DMR. And what that means is from anywhere in the world via a satellite backlink, your device can present itself to your native command center, which is extremely useful when you are operating far beyond the reach of normal networks. And lastly, and the focus of this presentation, is Hyphen Mesh, which is our IP transparent COFDM waveform that we will use to connect far beyond any normal connectivity of potential and allow devices to operate where you think they would previously have been unable to communicate. Now, just a little bit of background on Mesh. I'm not sure quite how up to speed everyone would be. So I'll just, sorry, Steve Sebastian, could you mute yourself, please? It's great to meet you, but it would be helpful. Thank you. Great, thanks, Steve. Now, a mesh network essentially is all about forming connections when both line of sight and non-line of sight conditions prevail. This means that in the traditional areas where you would see a difficulty in getting a signal through, the mesh network will find a way. Now, mesh networks are also, of course, self-sealing, and they are consistently forming their new connections. So they are, in effect, a living network that will constantly be trying to find the best route to send data between the various nodes and back to where it's actually needed. And the key thing here, of course, is no user intervention. This is not a technology that means you've got to be constantly checking your readouts and pressing buttons to make sure that you stay connected. Now, as I said, a lot of people have heard of the mesh networks. It's fundamentally a radio frequency network. The two most common systems are Wi-Fi and COFDM modulation. Now, Wi-Fi is the one we all know because everyone's got an office and everyone's walking around with a laptop that's just seamlessly connected. And I think we're also familiar with the limitations there of around 90 yards of range. There can be contention and it can be prone to interference. So there's always a question of, is the Wi-Fi actually fit for purpose when you're in difficult situations, particularly that emergency services will come up against? Where Wireless Innovation have gone down the path of using the COFDM modulation. Now, I won't even pretend to know exactly what the coded orthogonal frequency division multiplexing means, but at the end of the day, this is a wideband carrier, and think of it as having multiple bridges across a single river. Rather than the traditional Wi-Fi, where there is a single signal and that will transmit, and if it's impeded, then nothing gets through. Using COFDM, you've got the equivalent of up to 2,000 bridges across the river, which means that no matter what, some of your message will get through, and from what gets through, the signal will be received. So the key point here is this makes it extremely robust, and it also allows for some pretty high data rates. We can do up to 56 kilobytes per second, and it remains mobile because it's self-healing and self-forming. Now, using multipath propagation means, of course, also that it operates extremely well around right angles and in confined areas like buildings, tunnels, underground parking garages, because it's sending out up to 2,000 carriers of data. Something will get through. The reflections will work and you will get your signal. So it has excellent performance in very difficult and confined environments. Now, Hyphen Mesh, which is the brand that Wireless Innovation has brought to market here, is essentially, think of it as an IP transparent bridge. Our job is to take whatever you generate and get it to where you need it, and we can do it at up to 56 megabytes per second. So it is bandwidth level, and it is extremely good at getting through difficult environments, and it will simply operate IP transparently. So what you put in, you will get out. The intent here is that we're creating coverage where none exists. When you go deep into a structure, a building, or if you're having to search a ship, for example, these are areas that traditionally are very difficult for cellular and radio signals to penetrate unless you've got an absolute daisy chain of repeaters and other systems to support the signal. As I said, it's self-forming, which means it allows smart devices, sensors, cameras, robots to build a network that will get the data back to where it's required. And the other thing that's very interesting and we're working on right now is we've been able to show that it operates as direct mode for smartphones. Now, the implications there are enormous because direct mode has always been the Achilles heel of the smartphone when it comes to public safety. You cannot currently substitute the walkie-talkie experience of radio using direct mode with any other kind of device, but we believe we may have found a way. The other thing here is that it is a secure and private RF network. we can put on the encryption, and it operates independently of public networks. So you do not have the risk of either security breaches or other people being able to follow your traffic. And the last thing, as you will see when we go through the actual components of this network, is it's designed for rapid deployment. There is no infrastructure required. There are no masts to be built or trucks to be parked up necessarily. This can all be carried or very rapidly deployed in order to be effective. It is quite literally open the case, take out the item, switch it on, and you're connected. Here are the key components of our Hyphen Mesh solution. This is the hardware that makes it all work. At the top, you'll see we've got the communications access point, which we call the Hyphen Cap. Now, this is a portable mesh device. It is handheld. It's a hand-holdable. If some of us remember the first generation of Walkmans from Sony, it's around that size, if not a little smaller. So what this does is it is a fully functional mesh node. So it's got the range to connect to each other, and of course it will form the self-healing network between each node, while at the same time it projects a Wi-Fi bubble. So here, that device will project a 90-yard Wi-Fi bubble to which you can connect your laptops, your smartphones, your sensors, your biometrics packages. And of course, then anything that goes over that Wi-Fi gets transmitted over the mesh back to wherever it's required. The advantage here as well is that it means you can do Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi even if you are miles apart. So you can have a smartphone talking to another smartphone on airplane mode, but actually at a great distance because all the traffic is being carried through the mesh network. The next device down is what we call the Hyphen PTT, the Hyphen Push to Talk. This is a walkie-talkie form factor. It's the portable terminal, and it operates essentially the same way that a walkie-talkie does, but it's using the mesh network, which means that it's not reliant on repeaters and fixed sites in order for you to be able to transmit your voice traffic and do everything else that a standard walkie-talkie would do. And down the bottom is our base unit. This is called the Hyphen node. It is configurable to varying levels of power. And normally we recommend putting a 2-watt node in a vehicle, and that will provide the sufficient range to talk to a wider mesh network. However, you can rank it up to 10 watts for aircraft mounting, which literally gives you mesh network coverage of over hundreds of miles. Now, those of you familiar with mesh networks will understand that is quite a significant increase in the availability of connectivity, particularly when you think that it's connecting down to a cap that then radiates a Wi-Fi bubble and allows all of your smart devices to connect when you are totally beyond cellular and/or radio communication. Just a little bit of a zoom in on the Hyphen Cap itself. Now, this product has been designed in conjunction with Fire and Rescue New South Wales, which is the largest fire brigade in the Southern Hemisphere, and also working closely with colleagues that we have in the Queensland Fire Services. So we've really gone to town on how we can actually make this work with a fireman, how it will integrate to his turnout gear, and how he can have a quick look at what he needs to look at for getting back to the job he's focused on. So starting on the left, you can see this is it's a rugged case. It is built for non-office environments, let's call it that. It's IP67 rated. It has an LED indicator that will give you the signal strength and the battery levels at a glance, so you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to read anything. There's a carabiner and a belt clip, so we give you options of how you wish to connect it. Of course, it can also be slid into a pocket. I mean, it's designed that size. It has an internal battery that will give you 6 hours of operation, which means that for all intents and purposes, it's half a shift straight up. Externally, you can see there's a hot swap battery that clips in securely and slides out and can be swapped over while the device is in operation. Now, the beauty of this means that it's hot swapping. You do not lose connectivity. Your device does not switch off because the internal battery will maintain the connectivity. Now, what that does, of course, means that as long as you have a supply of charged batteries, your device can be on. So you can run it beyond shift length, or you can simply hand your device over to the shift that's taking over, and they continue to work at whatever incident you're covering. Down the bottom, we have charging options. There is a travel clip. It's a very innovative piece of design that effectively clips onto the bottom, covering both the external battery and the device itself, and can charge. Or we have the more traditional desk dock that I'm sure you're all familiar with the LMR portable radios, both of which can do battery charging independently of device charging. So you can make sure you have your supply of hot swap batteries kept charged while your devices are in the field. Here's some, I just wanted to give you a bit of a technical upgrade of here's how it's all put together. It's extremely well sealed. We've got the gaskets there. It is splash proof. As I said, it's IP67, so it makes a lot of sense that it can handle anything short of full immersion and being left in a wet environment. That also means it's extremely proofed against smoke, dust, and other particulate issues that make it into the electronics. On the left, you can see the clamp charger that clips on, and there's the dock as well that shows you can charge the battery and the unit both separately and independently. So the key points of the Hyphen Cap, and I'm focusing on the Hyphen Cap because this is a device that is not in market currently. This is new. So on a communications side, as I said, we are an IP transparent bridge. The key point for the US market is that we're operating in 4.9 gigahertz, which, pending FCC approvals and a decision not to auction it off to private enterprise, is going to be the public safety frequency. And consequently, we're very confident that this is an extremely good fit for the market that you inhabit every day. On the range side, I can see I've got 92 yards for Wi-Fi, not 90, but that's pretty much where we are on the range of the Wi-Fi itself. So think of it as your standard Wi-Fi. Now, as we all know, 92 yards is probably the limits of Wi-Fi, but if anyone is going to stand more than 50 or 60 yards away from their colleagues during an incident and rely on them to be passing their communications, then we've got a bit of an issue. The mesh, which is the real secret sauce on this one, in open country can go up to 5 miles between nodes. Now that is extremely important if you're thinking about wide areas like backcountry firefighting, where you may actually be quite separated and therefore you are able to stay in contact. And even within building, this COFDM waveform can operate up to 1 mile between nodes, depending on the complexity of the structures it's having to pass through. The device itself, as I said, it's hand portable. It's a very simple LED display. It's single switch it on, it forms the network. It's IP67, and we can run with 1 internal and 1 external battery, shift length, 12 hours. And lastly, of course, because we are focused as an organization on integrating multi-bearer communications, you can integrate it to cellular networks, to P25 networks, to the DMR networks that are currently used in public safety. And in open country, you can have up to 60 nodes on that mesh network. And even in an urban or an in-building environment, up to 32 nodes. Now, both of those can then be collated into multi-groups. So each 60-node network would be controlled by someone a level above. So you can have more than 60 nodes in field. It's just that they would be coordinated at the command center. Now, just a few scenarios. I just want to put a few thoughts in your head here. Is the firefighters entering a building that has no power and connectivity. Too many times I've heard the story of, oh, don't worry, we'll use the office Wi-Fi. That's not going to work. So we have found a way that you can go into a dark, powerless building and still retain your connectivity. Underground search and rescue and urban search and rescue are something that we've worked with Fire and Rescue New South Wales and Queensland Fire on how they would adjust their tactics to use a device like this. It suddenly opens up whole new areas for them to be able to reach safely and quickly. Remote area firefighting, as I said, when you're beyond cellular and radio coverage, this is a way to extend your network into those areas. Another one that came up through our association with Cobham Satellite, who we are a global technical partner of, when they do their maritime searches with police and customs operations, a ship is a massive, very complex metal box. That is not a good place to try and transfer cellular and radio traffic through. The mesh network, you would almost think it was designed for this kind of thing. And lastly, I'll talk about disaster recovery. I know there was a tragic cyclone in Texas, I think it was just recently, or a tornado. This is the opportunity where you arrive with your case and your Hyphen Mesh solution, open it, switch it on and go, and you have a communications network from the moment you switch things on. So areas where the power is down, the cell towers have been destroyed, and there's no way of getting a radio repeater functioning beyond the life of its batteries, this is where you can actually take over with a mesh network that operates not just for standard traffic, but also it gives you the opportunity to coordinate volunteers, because most people have a smartphone that can be attached to a Wi-Fi network that can be coordinated by a disaster recovery team command center. So the opportunities here are beyond simply the public safety agency and out into anyone they work with. So that is the big plus here between having Wi-Fi around each mesh node and also the mesh itself being able to connect you in places that you were unable to get connectivity before. Just to, pardon my persistence here, but to hammer home the point, this is what a CAP can do for you. Each person with a CAP or each work team with a CAP can be passing voice. They can be showing video. They can act as a mobile data, or they can carry the information from a mobile data terminal. They can supply what the inputs and outputs for a visitor heads-up display. So visors, for instance, generally used by the military now, but also can be used, and I've seen quite a few technical demonstrations for fire services in particular, where you don't need to look down. Now, all of that data has to reach you, and your inputs have to go back to command center. This is how that happens. And lastly, biometrics. I do understand that you had a presentation from a company called FireHUD, who I'm familiar with, and certainly think they have a very interesting proposition. That is the kind of biometrics you can carry from a firefighter back to command center when they're in an environment that previously you would not have had any connectivity and therefore would not have been able to track their biosafety to know whether they're becoming dehydrated, exhausted, overheated. So the combination of Wi-Fi from these devices with the distance and penetration power of the 4.9 gigahertz mesh is, I think, a really winning combination. Now, I'll just go briefly over this. This is the device ecosystem around a firefighter, for example, or any first responder. They've got their radios, there's video, there's audio, there's data terminals. You know, if they carry their own batteries in the thing to power all of those sensors, then they transmit them back via the mesh cap, and that way back to command center where they can be monitored. Here's just one example scenario I just wanted to talk through briefly, and it may raise some questions for some of you who do have backcountry within your areas of responsibility. As I said, what we're offering here is maintaining the connectivity where previously it was a black spot for you. We're allowing you, if appropriate, to connect volunteers into your local talk groups through the Wi-Fi, because it will allow them to contribute, but also it'll allow you to coordinate. Because the last thing and the most dangerous thing is having people in an incident who are out of control or who are not being coordinated. And lastly, of course, the HyperCap also carries GPS, so you can see the location of your HyperCap equipped firefighters and staff generally. So really the problems we're solving here are, how do you stay in communication in areas where previously you were unable to be communicating and consequently had to use a runner or had to actually withdraw a team for a debrief? Can you keep an eye on your firefighters? Yes, you can, both by location and also by biometrics. So it's concentrating on how this is good for your firefighting teams and how you can better manage their effectiveness on site and also their health overall. And it allows the coordination, the wider coordination of anyone with a smart device, because they can access, where appropriate, the Wi-Fi bubble that each mesh node is putting out. So in this case, backcountry firefighting, for example, if you have an assembly area and you have different levels of staff there, some are going straight to the fire front, others are going to be driving transport and logistics assistance, and others are perhaps civilian volunteers who simply need to be coordinated and be ready through their smart devices to be alerted if there is a need for evacuation or some other action. So this is an ideal situation where you can, all three of those groups can then go off and do their jobs, but stay in touch, because in a lot of those areas, there is no cellular coverage, and there's either no radio as well, or it doesn't make sense to hand out a walkie-talkie to every single person there. So just to summarize, one of the examples I've put in here for the US market in particular is it does deliver FirstNet wherever you have a requirement if you are on FirstNet. Of course, it works with any cellular network at a backhaul level. So your mesh network will connect back to a node, which would connect to a cellular router, and you are back online effectively. This allows you to have Wi-Fi broadband connectivity far beyond where the cellular networks end. Now, it will also support the mission critical push to talk and of course mega range, so HPUE for cellular devices. This just gives you an extra boost on top of what HPUE provides you. We have the direct mode capability that's being worked on now. We've demonstrated it, not quite ready to bring it out to everybody, but this is something that I think is going to make a massive difference in future. And key to this as well is there's no infrastructure required. This is not an infrastructure heavy or even infrastructure at all solution. It's extremely simple to unpack, switch on and use. The last thing I just wanted to show you is that we do have a visualization software that goes on top of this mesh network. Now, our intent is that this would be essentially integrated into groups like Adachi or Intera or any other incident command application that you would be using, and consequently overlaid on the visualizations you already have. However, this is our engineering tool, and you know, this has been done. This is actually real information from Dublin in Ireland in Europe, and it's showing multiple miles across open water from a 0.5 watt and a 2 watt node. So I think this is an example of what you can do. You can see on the right hand side the arrows indicating the signal strength and load, and those are coded both numerically and color wise, so you know when you've got a problem with your mesh network and where you may need to move someone into a new position in order to be able to get them to build the network up again. So this is a work in progress. This is our engineering version, as I said. However, as you can see bottom right, it even carries the video from a body cam via the mesh network, and that can be high definition streaming. So it's an extremely flexible tool, and I would think I'd be justified in saying its uses are limited only by your imaginations. Some of the details, we are going to be bringing this into the US market in volume in mid-2021. So that's probably around July at the moment. COVID has had some impacts. There's no getting around that, but the impacts have been more about limiting how often we can get out to visit you, show you what we can do, demonstrate the product, and of course, line up our proper entry to market mid-year. We are lining up our early access program right now, particularly for proof of concept and testing purposes. I have some colleagues who are doing a roadshow across California in March. So that's going to be our first foray into the market for demonstrations and proof of concepts. And pricing wise, we're looking at the HyperCap portable unit at around the $4,500 US, and the node, the 2 watt fixed unit, around $8,500. Now, to put this into context, it's extremely difficult to explain just how much we believe that this is the network for the future. This will supplement FirstNet. This will supplement cellular connectivity. This will supplement radios. And in a lot of areas, it'll be an investment that will cover and augment other investments you make. So what we've tried to do here is to bring a value-based proposition to the market for a technology that for most people and even most agencies has been unaffordable. Mesh traditionally has been a green system of use for army and armed forces around the world. This is our belief that it's time to bring it to the public safety market, and consequently, that's why we are, launching it and putting it in here at what we believe is a very value-based proposition for the network overall. Just the last few views of the Hyphen. There is a average man's hand, and that is the Hyphen device. So as you can see, portable, easy to slide into a pocket or connect to a belt or a webbing strap. And thank you for your attention. Thank you for the questions. I've seen quite a few flowing through there, and this is what Hyphen by Wireless Innovation is all about. We're about bringing connectivity to the edge and beyond, and I hope you'll find this useful. Thank you.
Angus, hey, great presentation. It's got a lot of instances I can think of from the wildfires to search and rescue. And you mentioned about the tornado here in North Carolina. We just had a tornado go through eastern North Carolina on Saturday, so that hits home very.
My apologies. My apologies. Wrong state there, Jeff. Yes, you're right.
That's okay. No, it's I actually talked to some folks and it actually took out some comms in one part of one of the counties. So very timely presentation there. We'll open it up now for any questions from anybody for Angus. All right. Well, I've got one for you. So in the cap, I had put the question in there about solar charging, where if you wanted to set it up and leave it for a long duration event, several days or things like that. And I like the hot charge. I know Charles had responded on that, commented about the hot charge change out capability. That's really unique. That's cool. So one of the things too that we see in a lot of the environments is the ability to move that data off of the radio systems, like you were talking about, where you could bring people in from just their regular internet connectivity devices and things. And I'm just curious to see how, as we move towards that more and more, and getting away from traditional push-to-talk radios, do you see a change in where these types of devices, like you have here, will become smaller and smaller, and more of them? Is that the answer, or is it to leave them a certain size and have them cover a bigger area?
No, those are very good questions. As with any product, of course, this is version 1. So we would be looking to make it ever more user-friendly, which generally does mean smaller and more easily portable. I'll refer to the cap here, the portable device. There are some systematic limitations of you need a certain space between the antennas, you need room for batteries and things, but these things can become smaller and smaller, so yes. I would definitely see an opportunity here to provide more of the devices, and as the market develops, of course, with anything, the cost will come down as well, which makes it even more attractive. So I really want to start the virtual spiral of improving the value and decreasing the size as we can to keep it effective. So yes, you're absolutely right. The intent here is to roll this out so that any black spots, communications, and also a lot of people don't think about buildings as black spots because they assume that cellular coverage will always be there. It won't. So this is where having these in numbers is going to be a massive advantage for the future, and we are working to make them more affordable and working to make them more physically effective and carryable in order to provide the network that everyone needs.
Good deal. Any questions out there? Angus, you said you have a team going around California. How long will your team be here in the States?
These are US-based colleagues of ours, so they're based in Mountain Time, up near Denver, but they are going to be in California for I think a week or two, and then we are opening up to options of where we go next. So yes, we do want to get around more and more parts of the US in order to demonstrate this service and hopefully get some proof of concept set up quite soon.
Great. So for any of our members that would like to maybe invite you to their locations where they might have something unique, is it okay for them just to reach out to you and explain their situation? And maybe it's something that would raise up to where you might want to have someone come out and talk to them?
I'd absolutely welcome that contact. Yes, please. And just to point out that my colleagues are native-born Americans, so their accent will be a little easier to understand too.
Well, now I'm an American too, but people say they have a hard time understanding me sometimes. So
I don't know what you mean, Jeff.
Angus and Company 6 is just in Boulder down the street from Denver too. So sounds like our teams will have to get together at some point.
I think that would be a great idea. Yes, totally, Damon.
Very cool technology.
Indeed. Can I just perhaps take a leaf out of Damon's book there and just ask to the audience generally, is there anything you like/don't like about the whole idea of the cap or the physical device itself? We're very open to feedback, and to be honest, we are extremely agile in our development. 12 months ago, this thing did not even exist. We've taken it from an idea to a manufactured unit in 12 months. So we are agile. We are very interested in hearing from you who live and breathe this on what you think could be better or what you think we should stop doing.
Great. Well, this group is not shy about giving you feedback when they get their hands on something or get you one-on-one. So you'll have no problem with that. So is there any other questions out there from anybody for either Angus or for Jim from Company 6?
Hey, Jeff, it's Zach. I'll give some quick feedback to Angus. His product, it looks really interesting. Coming from a department that covers 8,000 square miles, I think you're doing everything you need to do. The connectivity piece is kind of like the holy grail that we're missing as far as connecting technology into operations. The hesitant that we always see, or that I can speak of myself, is just a lot of people say they have the solution, but proving that it works. And from the sounds of it, your colleagues from Colorado are got their feet on the ground and pushing around the state and different territories trying to show that. That's exactly what you need to do, because PowerPoints are great, but field demos and helping connect that reality is what's going to prove your product. So great work. Appreciate the time.
No, thanks for the feedback, Zach. That's extremely interesting, and I hope we get around to you soon.
Great. Thanks, Zach. Okay. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I'd like to thank our presenters today and also give everyone a little update. We are working right now on the landing the final spot that we've decided for the Technology Summit in November. That's going to be the last week of October, first week of November. It will be 3 days. It's going to be there in the Dallas area near the airport. So be sure and go ahead and mark your calendars. I know Chief Muncie, he got tied up today, wasn't able to get on the call, but he's going to be sending something out to the committee here in the next couple of weeks for a hold the date, and then also to our vendors as well. We want to make sure that you're there with us to share your latest toys and tricks. So be sure and put that on your calendar as well. Hearing no other questions or anything, we're going to go ahead and sign off for today. Thanks everybody for joining us and all the great questions. And then our next webinar is going to be on March 3rd, and that's going to be with PhotoKite and 3AM Technologies. So thanks everyone for joining us, and those of you in the path of the storms, please be careful, stay safe, and take care of you folks out there. Good afternoon.
Everyone, have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.